Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in perfect harmony with nature, where every decision is made through consensus and conflict is resolved without violence? Today, we're journeying deep into the mountains of Mindanao to discover the Teduray people, an indigenous community whose way of life challenges everything we think we know about human society. The Teduray, pronounced Teduray, are one of the most fascinating indigenous groups in the Philippines, yet their story remains largely untold to the outside world. Living in the remote highlands of Cotabato province, these remarkable people have maintained their ancestral traditions for over 1,000 years, creating a society so unique that anthropologists consider it one of the most peaceful cultures ever documented. But what makes them so special? And how have they managed to preserve their identity in our rapidly modernizing world? The answers might surprise you and challenge your assumptions about what human communities can achieve. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. The Teduray have no concept of permanent leadership as we understand it. Instead of kings, presidents, or chiefs, they operate through what they call the datu system, but not in the way you might expect. A datu isn't born into power or elected for life. They're chosen temporarily based on specific situations and their wisdom in handling particular problems. Once the issue is resolved, they return to being ordinary community members. Imagine a society where power isn't hoarded but shared, where leadership rotates based on expertise and need. This isn't some utopian fantasy. It's how the Teduray have organized themselves for centuries. When there's a dispute over land, they choose someone known for their fairness. When they need to organize a harvest, they select someone with agricultural wisdom. When spiritual guidance is needed, they turn to those with deep cultural knowledge. This system has created something extraordinary, a culture with virtually no violent crime. The Teduray have developed sophisticated methods of conflict resolution that would make modern mediators envious. They call it gusul, a process where community members gather to hear all sides of a dispute, discuss solutions, and reach consensus without anyone losing face or dignity. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Teduray don't just resolve conflicts, they prevent them through their entire social structure. They practice what anthropologists call institutionalized sharing. Wealth accumulation as we know it simply doesn't exist. If someone has more than they need, community expectations ensure it's distributed to others. This isn't forced redistribution. It's deeply ingrained cultural behavior that makes economic inequality almost impossible. Think about this for a moment. We live in a world where inequality drives so much conflict and suffering. Yet here's a society that has essentially eliminated this problem through cultural innovation developed over generations. They've created abundance through sharing rather than accumulation. The spiritual life of the Teduray is equally fascinating. They believe in a supreme being called Minaden, but their religious practice is remarkably inclusive and non-dogmatic. They don't have priests or formal religious hierarchy. Instead, spiritual knowledge is shared among community members, with certain individuals recognized for their deeper understanding rather than their authority. Their creation stories speak of humans being crafted from different materials, explaining the diversity of peoples in the world. But unlike many creation myths that elevate one group above others, Teduray stories emphasize equality and interconnectedness. They see themselves as part of a larger human family, not as a chosen people superior to others. This worldview extends to their relationship with the environment. The Teduray practice what we might now call sustainable living, but for them, it's simply traditional wisdom. They believe the forest has a soul, that animals are their relatives, and that taking more than needed is both wasteful and spiritually harmful. Their agricultural practices reflect this philosophy. They practice swidden farming, also known as slash-and-burn agriculture, but not in the destructive way often portrayed. The Teduray version is carefully planned and sustainable. They clear small plots, farm them for a few years, then allow the forest to reclaim the land while they move to new areas. This gives the ecosystem time to regenerate while providing for human needs. They cultivate rice as their staple crop, but also grow root vegetables, fruits, and medicinal plants. Hunting and fishing supplement their diet, but always within sustainable limits. They have detailed traditional knowledge about which animals can be hunted, when, which fishing areas need to rest, and how to harvest forest products without damaging the ecosystem. The Teduray language itself reflects their values. They have specific words for concepts that don't exist in most other languages. Ginhawa doesn't just mean peace, it encompasses a state of harmony between individuals, community, and nature. Kauyag refers to the collective responsibility everyone has to ensure no one in the community suffers from want. Their traditional clothing and crafts are works of art that carry deep meaning. Teduray women are master weavers, creating intricate textiles using traditional backstrap looms. The patterns aren't just decorative, they tell stories, mark social status, and connect the wearer to ancestral traditions. Each design element has significance, from the colors used to the specific geometric patterns chosen. Men traditionally craft weapons, tools, and musical instruments with equal artistry. Their brass work is particularly renowned, creating gongs and other instruments that are central to their ceremonial life. These aren't just functional objects. They're repositories of cultural knowledge and artistic expression. However, we must acknowledge that the Teduray face significant challenges in the modern world. Their traditional territory has been encroached upon by logging companies, large-scale agriculture, and development projects. Many young Teduray have migrated to cities for education and employment, creating concerns about cultural continuity. The Philippine government has made efforts to recognize indigenous rights, including the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, which grants some protection to ancestral domains. But implementation has been inconsistent, and the Teduray continue to struggle for recognition and protection of their traditional territories. Climate change poses another threat. Changing weather patterns affect their agricultural cycles and the forest ecosystems they depend on. Traditional knowledge that has served them for generations may need adaptation as environmental conditions shift. Despite these challenges, the Teduray are not passive victims of modernization. They're actively working to preserve their culture while adapting to contemporary realities. Some communities have established cultural education programs to ensure young people learn traditional skills and values. Others have found ways to market their crafts and agricultural products while maintaining sustainable practices. Modern Teduray leaders are engaging with government officials, NGOs, and international organizations to advocate for their rights and share their knowledge. They're participating in indigenous peoples' movements across the Philippines and Southeast Asia, connecting with other communities facing similar challenges. Some Teduray have pursued higher education and professional careers while maintaining strong connections to their cultural identity. They serve as bridges between traditional and modern worlds, helping their communities navigate change while preserving what's most important about their heritage. The resilience of Teduray culture offers important lessons for our interconnected world. In an era of increasing polarization and conflict, their consensus-based decision-making and conflict resolution methods provide alternative models for human organization. Their sustainable environmental practices offer insights for addressing climate change and biodiversity loss. Perhaps most importantly, their emphasis on sharing and collective well-being challenges assumptions about human nature that underlie much of modern economic and political thinking. They prove that societies based on cooperation rather than competition aren't just possible. They can be remarkably successful and fulfilling. As we face global challenges that require unprecedented cooperation, the Teduray example becomes even more relevant. Their 1,000-year experiment in peaceful, sustainable living offers hope that humans can organize societies around values other than power accumulation and resource exploitation. The Teduray story is still being written. These remarkable people continue to evolve and adapt while maintaining the core values that have sustained them for generations. They deserve our respect, not as museum pieces or romantic primitives, but as fellow humans who have developed sophisticated solutions to universal human challenges. Their future depends partly on recognition and support from the broader world. When we understand and appreciate indigenous knowledge systems like those of the Teduray, we contribute to cultural diversity and human wisdom. We also support communities that are on the front lines of environmental conservation and social innovation. The Teduray have much to teach us about living in harmony with each other and with nature. Their story reminds us that there are many ways to organize human societies, and that some of the most important innovations in human development may come from communities we've overlooked or marginalized. As our journey into Teduray culture comes to an end, we're left with profound questions about our own societies and values. What can we learn from their approach to leadership, conflict resolution, and environmental stewardship? How might their emphasis on sharing and consensus inform our responses to contemporary challenges? These are conversations worth having, and understanding indigenous cultures like the Teduray is essential for expanding our imagination about what human societies can achieve. If you enjoyed this journey into the remarkable world of the Teduray people, like, comment, and subscribe for more only on Heritage Finder.